Good morning. I'm Charlotte Garrido. I'm a Kitsap County Commissioner, and I've been there for a number of years. But I've been involved for years and years in Kitsap County. We moved there in about 40 years ago. And I became involved quite early on because in the early 80s, Kitsap County was updating their comprehensive plan, and they invited citizens to be involved. I came into that process and stayed involved as a citizen volunteer for many years on watershed ranking committees, and I actually wrote a Puget Sound Water Quality Authority grant years ago as a citizen so that my neighbors and I could monitor a stream on a regular basis in our own community, and we monitored it for about 5 years. So we have some pretty good data about a stream, a very small stream that has coho and chum in it. So that's just some of my background, and as a commissioner, I'm on the West Central Puget Sound LIO, and I'm also serving on the Ecosystem Coordinating Board. My partners here have spoken a lot about habitat and what's happening on the restoration and preservation side. But I thought that it might be really valuable for you to know how we in Kitsap County have adopted a water as a resource policy. Because we feel like it's really important not only to do the work in our community to manage water quality, but also to look at our own operations and how we operate as a county. We have some 10,000 acres of parkland, 900 miles of roads, lots of garbage and recycling facilities, sewer treatment plants, etc. And that means that we really need to attend to our own book of business. But I wanted to situate you in Kitsap County a little bit. We're a peninsula, nearly surrounded by water, 300 miles of water shoreline, as a matter of fact. And because we have so much inland water and are surrounded by water, it's really easy for us to link our land uses with water quality and how we're impacting that. We are a fairly small geographic county, but we are, I think, the 4th most populated county in Washington State, which means that we are having some impacts, and we need to be able to pay attention to that and how we are affecting it too. And paying attention to the assets as well as to the operations. So why a water policy? Well, actually, there were a couple of things that were on our plate at the time that we started thinking about doing water as a resource policy. And that was in 2010. And one of the things that we had on our plate was the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit was on our horizon. And we didn't want to just respond to that as a permit responsibility. We wanted to be able to see what kind of changes that we could make in Kitsap County with our citizens and with our own operations. We were also looking at a very, very, very aging sewer treatment plant in central Kitsap, which is our largest plant. It serves Silverdale and Bremerton and points around there. And we felt like it was our opportunity as we were going to upgrade that to really look at some very positive changes. Another thing Kitsap County Commissioners do is we try to do an annual survey of what our citizens are concerned with, and pretty strongly, definitely on the 5th highest citizen concern had to do with water quality, and especially with their drinking water, because 80% of our citizens get their water from the ground. The city of Bremerton has a surface water resource, but basically most of us need to know where that water has been and what kind of quality it is, and we need to maintain quality for drinking water. So we saw the idea of a policy of water as a resource as being a driver for our actions going into the future in terms of our stormwater code, updates of our own comprehensive plan, eventually our shoreline management plan update, et cetera. It really helped us unify what we do internally in our operations across departments and kind of evaluate ourselves. So I think it was Ron that talked about the water cycle. We really wanted to be able to mimic the natural cycle. And so we looked at forested land cover and the urbanized land cover and what that means. So we wanted to make sure that the evapotranspiration was not too far apart, and we noted that 37.4% of forested land evaporates, and yet on urbanized land cover it's only 25%. We wanted to regain some groundwater inputs. Again, on forested land cover, that's about 36.6% infiltrates, whereas in urbanized land cover, it's about 15%. That's pretty remarkable and needs attention. And then the overland flow is 0.3% in forested land cover and 35% runoff in urbanized land cover. And so that gave us, kind of some things to really pay attention to, and how do you mimic the forested land cover or the natural land cover with such a big population, such a concentrated population. So we set some goals early on, and the staff really did a great job. And actually, I wanted to send out some kudos to the #1 staffer on this is Dave Tucker, who is our Assistant Director of Public Works. So I'm going to be very public works oriented today, just because that's where we started. But we are including all of our public-facing departments. But we set those standards of groundwater and surface runoff and water pollution. So some of the goals that, it helps you look at the intended outcome. If you don't look at it ahead of time, it's really hard for you to know how much you're achieving and how to measure it. So we wanted to know what that was in the 3 basic areas of groundwater. We aim to maintain the peak period use of groundwater at or below 2014 levels. In surface runoff, we wanted, within Kitsap, unincorporated Kitsap, we wanted to mimic, as I said, the Puget Sound lowland natural flow regime. And we wanted to pay a lot of attention to the how to manage water pollution. We really wanted to make sure that we were minimizing that for all water resources, whether near shore, marine waters, creeks, streams, wetlands, aquifers, etc. We didn't want it to be degraded by human activity, including Kitsap County operational activities. And we wanted to be able to help it maintain a high level of environmental quality. So some of the measures of success, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Some of these work, and some of them we are evaluating and adding to, and you will probably find that you've already got some of these measures that you're working with as well. Again, for the groundwater, surface runoff, and water pollution. But I thought you might be really interested because we wanted to especially look at the treatment plant upgrades. We wanted to move to a Class A water treatment level. Because we were putting $30 million into that sewer treatment plant upgrade, we felt like it really gave us the opportunity to make a huge difference ongoing. You'll see that really nice illustration that tells you, shows you the raw sewage and then how much cleaner the plant effluent is. And you're looking a lot at using unclaimed or reclaimed water because you can use that on a lot of irrigation of non-food crops and industrial uses for stream augmentation and for shallow infiltration. We find that there are some other agencies that we can be partnering with. The Suquamish tribe is taking Class A water for their golf course adjacent to the Kingston treatment plant, for example. And we could offer a number of other examples. Our parks are really good users for reclaimed water. And it's not only Public Works. I have to put a little bit of a note in every once in a while just to remind us all that it's all of our departments, our parks, our natural resources division, the community development department and their planning, and employee education as well. One of the things that you see when you're unifying your internal operations is that you're talking about the education of the public. Well, actually, we're all the public. And so if we are talking this kind of different cultural, innovative approach internally, it gives us the opportunity on a daily basis, no matter what our job is, to be out there talking to our friends and neighbors about the way that we're doing business and what difference that makes out in the community. So just to talk a little bit about surface water runoff. We're doing a lot with rain gardens, as you can see in the lower picture. That's the YMCA. That was when it was first built. It's a lot lusher looking now, but we're infiltrating in a lot of different installations that are going on now. We are asking development to also include that. We're doing that in our own buildings as well. We're also doing it with residences, and we have a partnership with the local conservation district. Some of our stormwater funding goes to the conservation district for them to be able to work directly with homeowners about building their own low-impact development. Another example is our local, actually one of the leaders in low-impact development in Kitsap County was our Home Builders Association that rebuilt the parking lot at their office with examples of different kinds of low-impact development from there were I think there are 8 or 9 different kinds of low-impact development that you can observe. And they were so thrilled after they first installed it, because there was a really huge rainstorm shortly after, and where they'd had flooding for years and years and years, and water standing in the roadway and in their parking lot. Their parking lot actually even removed some of the road flooding beyond their space. So they were really good ambassadors of low-impact development. So some of the short-term actions I wanted to walk through, just some examples of what we're doing so that you can get a better sense of what that can mean in one particular jurisdiction. So because we have so much shoreline, and most of Kitsap County was developed along the water, because how did you approach the county when you were first settling here? It was usually by water, and actually we were served by mosquito fleet. So that a lot of our roadways literally run along the water, pretty low levels, so that they're right there close to the water. And it's really important for us to be able to reduce the amount of toxic pollutants that are going off into the Sound. So one of the things we've done is expanded our inventory of street sweepers, so that we're using regenerative, this is what they're called, street sweepers. We began expanding our fleet in 2012 because it reduces the metals and hydrocarbons that run off of roads, as well as anything else. But that's really the main reason that we use it. And we also have a regular routine of where they're going to be running, so that we know that we're keeping the roadways fairly clean. We have, as Ron mentioned, the Pollution Identification and Correction Program, the PIC program. Again, our stormwater funds are placed with our local health district, who actually do the PIC program. And they've assisted with restoration of 8 shellfish growing areas through that program. We, as I said, we assist homeowners with doing their own low-impact development. And we also note that petroleum-based vehicles are large water pollution contributors, so reducing combustion products where possible will improve water quality, and so we're investing in hybrids and electric vehicles as a county government as well, and installing plug-ins for the others who also use them. So this illustrates one of our roadways. It's and where the street sweeper is doing a little cleanup. You know, we know not only are we surrounded by water, but because we can see it so clearly, we are very, very familiar with every kind of activity that county government and some neighborhoods can be doing to impact positively or negatively some of our wonderful water bodies. And we look out the window, actually on the way back when I showed you the map, the picture beside that is actually taken from my office. I love the view. It changes every day, several times, many times a day, and it's just something that we appreciate being able to see and know that it's not only something beautiful for us to look at, but it's a habitat that we need to be able to maintain. So we see it almost wherever we are, in our homes, going from here to there, whether we're walking, running, biking, or driving. It's just a part of our lives, and we know how important it is to be able to have practices, common sense practices. So shoreline management. I wanted to tell you that in addition to Public Works, we updated our shoreline management plan in 2013, I think, is when we formalized it. But it was about 3 years in the planning. It took that long. We had a huge steering committee, a task force of about 20 people from all walks of life. There were private property owners, fishing interests, ports, cities, environmental interests, and of course our two tribes. They met monthly at least for 3 years. They had a number of subcommittees that helped them recommend some of the policies that they wanted to put into the plan. This is a really good example of citizen participation, though, because not only did we do that, but afterward, the Planning Commission and the County Commissioner held another at least 20 public meetings, hearings, as well as open houses and opportunities to talk about our shorelines. And I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit further. It was a long process. One of the biggest concerns early on was private property rights, and we were watched very closely about that. But we also were able to diminish some of that by saying we're not going to go backward and change the regulations for development that currently exists. It is for all future development, and we did put some different regulations in place, but certainly some expectations. And the conversation that you have with citizens about that is really the important way that you change not only the county culture, but the culture of citizens across the county. One of the other ways that we involve the public is we have the kids at the local schools design panels for some of our vehicles so that not only are they feeling invested and their families feel invested, but they can see this kind of artwork on a regular basis as it's out driving around. It's an educational piece that was created by some of the kids in our community. We think that's a fun way for us to help get the message out. So some of the lessons learned by having a policy of water as a resource, not a waste stream, is that we know that we are a single government, but that we have many departments, and yet we are all serving the same public. And it's important for us to be talking internally about the different processes that we use, the different viewpoints that we use, the different sciences that we know, so that we're sharing that internally. But beyond that, it's as Representative Theringer said, it's the triple bottom line. We're talking about this on a regular basis. We're talking about our environment and what's important to all of us and how common sense can help us direct the future, and the present and the future of our natural environment. It's about our economy, because if we don't have a healthy economy, we're spending a healthy environment, then we're probably not going to have a healthy economy. And we keep talking about costs. Do you want to put that money in maintaining good quality, or do you want to put money in restoring? It's going to be a lot more cost effective to manage well at the outset rather than to have to fix things afterward. And so we just feel like that's a really important message for us to live. Because of my background, it's really important to listen to citizens. I think every one of them also feels some real passion for our local community and for Kitsap County. As I said, we can all see it on a daily basis. And so they know their neighborhoods, they know some practical measures themselves. And if we're talking, we're helping them know the talents and the skills and the professional abilities that we bring to managing Kitsap County. But we're hearing from them some of the practical measures that we can put in place. And I think that's really, really a fundamental piece of being able to manage our environment well. And that triple bottom line is also about social equity. We represent people in our community, and so that means that we are also in partnership, not only within government, between governments, but with our public, and that's an important part of our equation. So we've looked at the big picture. We think this policy helps us draw the big picture together as much as it helps us drill down to some of the specific actions that we can be taking and that we can be recommending. We've set goals, we evaluate what we do, and we use some data, we generate data so that we can be measuring how well we're fulfilling our own goals. The one place I'd like to see us work on a little bit more is celebrating successes, because how better to educate ourselves and others than to say, we're doing a really good job, and look at what that looks like in a lot of different ways. So I think I have one more. You don't have to read this right now. I just wanted you to know that we are measuring some of our outcomes, and that's kind of what it looks like. We really are making some compounding some of our activities is helping us increase the removal of solids and lead and zinc and so forth from our systems. And so we feel like that's just an example of how we can measure and therefore have some much better outcomes. Thank you.